Hi and welcome to the videocast. And this month we'll be featuring somebody who's just retired after an illustrious career. And to show you who, here's a clip.
Gilberto Silva to Ronaldo. Ronaldo for Brazil. Oh, what do you say about that? Extraordinary. 49 minutes gone. Every World Cup needs a hero, and Ronaldo is one here.
No, this is not about Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo, the likeable Ronaldo featured in that clip, but the person doing the commentary, which was of course John Motson, the voice of football for so many years, going right back into my childhood. In fact, he was at the BBC for 50 years, unbelievably. He retired at the weekend. And I was lucky enough to interview John a few years ago for a book that I was writing that I haven't released yet, anyway, where I interviewed a lot of famous communicators, people on television, or people who are involved in famous communication enterprises or projects, people involved in museums and so on. And I was interested to speak particularly to a sports commentator because I thought that's a very different type of communication, and I thought maybe there's some interesting insights or angles to come from it that way. And indeed there was. I'm going to share a couple very quickly with you today in the next few minutes. Now, John Motson was, as you might imagine, a really, really nice guy, just as you might imagine he would come across as being certainly that way on television. Accessible, easygoing, completely modest, enthusiastic, friendly, helpful in every way. But I wanted to share with you a couple of the insights as to how he thinks as a communicator and how you can take those lessons away. So 4 things, and I'll show you examples really, really quickly from or play you examples from the audio from the interview. The first one is enthusiasm. Obviously, if you're not interested in your subject, if you're not enthusiastic about it, why would the listener or the viewer be? So I asked John, because this is a very, very strong thing with him, obviously, I asked him about this point.
Okay. I still get as much fun and as big a challenge out of preparing a match on a Friday, Barry, as I did 30 years ago.
Okay.
And if I didn't have that enthusiasm, mate, I couldn't do the job.
Okay, and your voice then follows your enthusiasm. It's not a case that you act in any way.
No, I can tell you now, I never act. I mean, if it's exciting, my voice may reflect it. Sometimes I may go over the top, but it's natural. I don't tailor it thinking I ought to be this about that move, or I ought to be a bit more careful about what I mean, once I start, this is the great thriving enjoyment of live broadcasting, really, is that you, in one way, you are actually saying the first thing that comes into your head.
Yeah.
Because you can only be dependent on what's in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go with a script.
So the second thing then, on top of enthusiasm, is knowledge. There's no use being enthusiastic if you don't know what you're talking about. In fact, that's really very irritating, and you do get that on television sometimes where people are presenters without really having a knowledge of what they're talking about. And knowledge is very important. The preparation in particular is very important. So I asked John about this as well. And your preparation is a big thing with you, isn't it? I mean,
big thing. Start on Thursday lunchtime, talk to a lot of people involved with the 2 clubs if I can get through to them. Usually watch a DVD or some sort of recording of a match played the week before. In the case of both the teams this weekend, I've seen their previous game. Every player I sort of spend a few minutes on his background. Has he ever scored for that club before?
Right.
Did he do something against that opposition last season? Then I go into sort of club sequences. When did they last lose at home? Is there any history between these 2 teams?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And obviously for this weekend the main accent will be on the new signings.
The third thing is structure. Now it came in 2 ways. It struck me that when I was talking to John Motson. First of all, there was the idea that he always keeps the viewer, or he did a lot of radio commentary as well. He's actually a brilliant radio commentator because his energy really fills up that space. But he would always keep the user, or the viewer rather, in the picture, the listener in the picture. So it's, where's the ball, how long's left, what does this game mean to the teams, what position will they be after this match, goal difference, how long's left, injury time, so that you're always orientated, you always know what's going on and what's the bigger picture. And that's very important in all communications, to know where this is going and why you should want to go there. But also in relation to the coherence. If you think about a match, like something on Match of the Day, a highlights package, that's basically a story. It's saying this is what happened in this ground on this day between these two teams. This is what transpired. But it's a live event when you're commentating on it, so it's very hard to know what the final outcome of the story would be before it happens, obviously. But John would always be thinking ahead. The clip will probably explain it better than I'm doing. So this is just the idea of understanding the final story in advance of the final story happening.
And then after that, there would be liaison with my match director, who would want to know what shots I wanted him to focus on at the start when we do our little introduction.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of journalism in that, because you like to come up with something at the beginning that may be relevant a bit later on. With a close-up of somebody, but this weekend it speaks for itself, because if Peter Crouch makes his debut, then he's an obvious close-up at the beginning, isn't he?
Hopefully not at the end, but anyway, that's my own preference.
There you go, there you go.
So that game was between Stoke and Liverpool, if you picked it up. And yeah, I didn't want Stoke to be the story that day. I think it finished a draw, although Crouch didn't score. But you can see the way he's thinking about the communication and the coherence of it. And this brings me to my fourth point, and that is the audience. He's always thinking about the audience. And these two clips, they're really, really short, but they bear this out. He's talking, and he's an ebullient, energetic, enthusiastic guy. And he's talking, I've asked him to talk about what he does, what he's famous for doing. And you can imagine that an extroverted kind of performer, if you like to say that about some communicators, might talk on and on about that. And yes, he talked with great energy, but he was all the time thinking, what are you hearing? You know, I'm saying this, but what are you getting from it? Does this make sense? Is this what you're looking for? And these two very, very short clips really show two great examples of that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please, I'm getting off I don't want to get away from your subject matter. You fire the next one at me.
Well, what is your preference for?
By sheer weight of personality, he could command the screen or the broadcast.
Right, yeah. Okay, I know you have to run.
Well, now listen, Barry, if you've got a couple more, mate, I don't want you to put the phone down and think you haven't asked something.
Okay. Well, one of the ones I was wondering is, do you enjoy a game?
So there's some insights from the great John Motson that you might not have realised from just listening to him commentating on matches. The importance of enthusiasm, the importance of preparation, the importance of structure, and most of all, the importance of knowing the audience and where you want to take them, and always being aware of that audience. And really you could use those four sort of tenets, if you like, in any, for example, presentation or a video or any kind of spoken communication. Is those four things are, you know, it's good a guide as any, and really, really nicely, I thought, communicated by John Motson, who, as I said, was a lovely guy, and in keeping with his clarity of thought and his communication energy, that was a really sort of concise and effective and quick and, you know, really good interview, and really short and as well. It happened really quickly. So it would make sense to play out with a clip. Why not? Who doesn't like watching a little bit of football to finish off with, commentated on by the great man himself? And this one I'm playing because I was fortunate enough to be at this match. This goes right back to my childhood, my earliest memories of watching football and hearing this voice to the great moments of football that I watched at the time. But this was a match at Anfield in 1982 between Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur. My dad used to bring me and my brother over for a weekend once a year, and we'd stay with cousins over there. We'd go over on the ferry and come back. And this match, we were so lucky because this match Liverpool won, and in doing so won the league that day. And but the goal I'm going to show you was not a Liverpool goal, but a Tottenham goal. Spurs went 1-0 up, and Liverpool came back in the second half, and it was a great finish to the game. But this is such a famous goal and such a brilliant goal. I have to show you this one. I maybe didn't enjoy it at the time, but when I watched it on Match of the Day later that night, knowing the score and commentated on by John Motson, I was able to enjoy it then, and hopefully you'll enjoy it too. So the great man finished his commentating for after 50 years, but here is a reminder of his communication. So we'll play out with John Motty Motson.
Houghton's making progress here to Villa. Hoddle. And Hoddle strikes one. Oh, a beautiful goal. Glenn Hoddle puts Spurs in front after 27 minutes. Grobbelaar beaten from way out, as he was indeed by Perryman in the first meeting between these two sides only 12 days ago. But Houghton began the move. Hoddle picked the ball up, struck it from distance, and it flew past the keeper. and that's put a very interesting slant on the afternoon now.